Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the intrepid adventurer Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do with housekeeping because once again, I'm having Lady Croft over and I've got to make sure everything is clean and tidy just as she likes it. So make sure that you follow me on X as at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. So, as I mentioned, I've got Miss Croft over again. This time, we're looking at Tomb Raider Anniversary from 2007. I am incredibly excited for this one. Not only does it continue our series where I look into Lara Croft games, where the last game I looked into was Lara Croft Legend from 2006. 1 year later, in terms of the games, not the series, we have another game which was used in the same assets, in the same game engine as Legend, but sort of as an anniversary for the original Lara Croft game. And I'm absolutely excited for that because I have many memories of watching my dad play the first 3 Lara Crofts on PC. And I remember the tank controls. I remember what the levels looked like. I remember like when you first meet the T-Rex, and it was just bonkers. It was like, oh my god, this is insane. At one stage, we're in like the Himalayas where it's snowy, and then we go deeper into this tomb. Next thing you know, I'm in like this paradise sort of wonderland that's got T-Rexes in it. It's incredible. Like, I don't know how we got here, but I love it, and that was the pure essence, the pureness of Lara Croft, of the idea behind it. Was you never knew where the character was going to go. You never knew what was going to happen. You just knew that you was on an adventure await, and then you got what you wanted, and it was just brilliant. So yeah, we all know how big of a Lara Croft fan I am. By this stage, I absolutely love her. I'm in awe of her and all of her games and movies, and I'm just a big fan. So I'm very, very much excited. Anyway, moving on to sort of talk about the game's plot. So British archaeologist adventurer Lara Croft is approached by mercenary Larson, who is employed by wealthy businesswoman Jacqueline Natla. Natla hires Lara to find the Scorn of Atlantis, an ancient artifact originally sought after by Lara's father, Richard Croft. It is buried in the tomb of Atlantean ruler Quillepec, I can't pronounce the name, within the lost city of Villacanaba. Again, can't pronounce it, dyslexic, sue me. Anyway, making her way through, I'm just going to call it Vikaba, making her way through Vikaba to Quillepec's tomb, Lara discovers that there are 3 pieces of the Scorn. I'm going to keep it in because it's just funny. Divided between Atlantis, Triumvirate, especially escaping the tomb as she's confronted by Larson, sent by Natala to take Lara's piece of the Scorn. After beating him in a fight, he reveals that Natala has sent her rival Pierre Dumont to retrieve the next piece. Breaking into Natala's office, Lara discovers a video showing the next Scorn pieces rest in place in Greece beneath a building called St. Francis's Folly. Do apologise there. I'm dyslexic, going to put my hand up, but I'm going to leave it in because it's funny to listen to me struggle with technobabble. Anyway, on to development. So the team were eager to develop Anniversary as they could use the development assets of Legend. They were also shocked by the request due to the original game's status among both Tomb Raider fans and video game history. Another reason for developing Anniversary over a new game was to help celebrate the series' 10th anniversary and create a compelling gameplay experience by remaking the first game rather than creating a new title. With 2 studios working on the game, the development structure was quite complex. A core team of 15 was based at Crystal Dynamics. Buzz Monkey Software formed a large part of the game's staff, and Crystal Dynamics' Executive Creative Services section oversaw development. Say that twice. When designing Anniversary, the team emphasized creating the game first before making adjustments to keep paper document to a minimum in favor of face-to-face conversations. To facilitate a smooth process, the team created a merit-based demographic environment where ideas could be put forward by other team members. As for story and art design, so Toby Gard, who we spoke about before, one of the original game's designers and Lara's credited creator, acted as story designer. The script and dialogue were written by Matt Ragahati. The original game story was described by Crystal Dynamics staff as pretty sparse and difficult to understand without Guard's explanations. One of the aims with Anniversary was to flesh out the narrative and tie it into the continuity of Legend. Guard fleshed out the lore and character motivations in Anniversary, something impossible with Tomb Raider as it needed to tell its story as quickly as possible. The narrative's conclusion, which included Lara's temptation by Natla's offer of knowledge of her father's sort, thematically led into Lara's search for her mother in Legend. Kelsey Holes, Lara's voice actress in Legend, reprised her role for Anniversary. Lara's personality was modeled upon that shown in Legend, but with suitable adjustments for who she was as a person during the events of Anniversary. Lara's initial drive for adventure, defined by Guard as an unstoppable madness contained within a proper British woman, was fleshed out to provide purpose for players. The aim was to make her appealing while staying true to her original portrayal. Guard's expansion of the story became focused on how far Lara was willing to go and what moral boundaries she would cross in pursuit of her goals. The interactions of Natla, Larson, and Pierre were extensively expanded by Guard, beginning with an infiltration sequence of Natla's Los Angeles offices by Lara prior to the Greece levels, which in Anniversary had her watching video messages between the characters. The character of Larson, who was carried over from the first game and merged with another of Natla's original henchmen called Cowboy, was made a more ambiguous character who shared a chemistry with Lara. The moment where Lara kills Larson was written to show Lara crossing a moral line and killing a person for the first time in pursuit of her goals. Natla's other henchmen were also reimagined to be more realistic, with Lara's confrontation with them being an intense battle following the emotional scene with Larson. As described by art director Andrew Wood, one of the team's starting points was by taking the most memorable moments from Tomb Raider and recreating them in Anniversary on a grander and more detailed scale. The art team wanted to show respect to the original game, designing environments to evoke nostalgia while being more complex and on a grander scale. All the original areas were brought back in Anniversary, but redesigned around modern gaming conventions. Botta said that the team picked out the most interesting parts of each area to preserve, leaving out the less interesting hallway traversal of the original. The environmental design saw an upgrade compared to those in Legend. The animals' primary enemies in the original Tomb Raider were carried over into Anniversary, but redesigned to appear as threatening and dangerous as possible so people would see them as a threat and not feel too uncomfortable about killing them. The graphic deaths of the original were also toned down at Bolter's suggestion, so they could earn a lower age rating and sell to a wider audience. When designing each environment, the art team would first create them with a low color palette and desaturated lighting to increase their realism. They would then add colorful elements such as foliage, combining that with different types of lighting, changing levels of light and darkness as Lara explored each location, were used to convey a sense of mystery. Peru was originally given a variety of environments, transitioning from snowy mountains to lush jungle to an underground tomb. The Lost Valley area, which had become a fan favorite since the original release, was redesigned using available technology and hardware to be more open. The gameplay was condensed into a smaller area compared to the original, which spread its puzzles and platforming through adjoining caves. Greece was designed around the theme of a subterranean temple hidden in a mountain. Egypt focused on the motif of bright sunlight, magnifying the use of lighting to promote mystery. Its layout and design saw the least overall changes when compared to the original Tomb Raider. The main differences was in its scale and variety. The Lost Island area was given a unique design with volcanic elements and fantastic architecture, unlike any of the other locations to act as the game's final area. As for sort of the gameplay, so as part of their research anniversary, the developers played through the original game multiple times, pinpointing its characteristic and iconic elements that needed to be carried over into the remake. A large amount of time was spent deciding what would be included, which elements to keep, and what to change so it would appeal to old and new players alike. Anniversary was developed using an updated and expanded version of the Legend engine, but with expanded gameplay elements and moves for Lara, which in turn impacted level design. Design was influenced by the team's previous experience with Legend. The puzzles were mostly redesigned based on the technology and physics engine of Legend. Much of the original game's focus on item collection and pulling switches was included, but the developers tried not to rely on this style too much, adding more variety with physics-based puzzles and environmental set pieces. When creating the puzzles, the team needed to take a second look at their design techniques so they could make puzzles and their solutions more visible and intuitive. An element they took into consideration was criticism of Legend's inner linear environments, with Anniversary being built with a philosophy of branching paths and an emphasis on exploration. This style was possible due to it being a core part of the original game. Lara's original inventory was also carried over from Tomb Raider, removing some of the tools introduced in Legend. When the Peru areas were being created, Guard was eager to redesign the village area of Vilcabamba. Again, I can't pronounce it. An area that the rest of the team did not know existed. The village was rebuilt to better portray Vilacabambam's now extinct civilization. St. Francis Folly was extensively redesigned to make puzzles larger and more complex, with many elements in Anniversary, such as the giant statue of Atlantis, in one of the challenge chambers being part of the original game that could not be completed. This theme of expansion continued through the rest of the areas. The Egypt levels were themed around traps and puzzles, taking a more prominent place in other areas. The Lost Island levels were changed in various ways. The Natla's Mines area was made more manageable, while later levels within the Atlantean Pyramid were made larger and more intricate. That is everything for the development. I do want to do a few comments here and there. When it mentioned the gameplay about adding more puzzles and more set pieces and environmental set pieces like that, I think if I remember correctly, that was one of my not sort of critiques. It was more just sort of a thing that I noted when I was playing Legend, was that I enjoyed what I loved about Legend was that I enjoyed the fact of it was, in all intents and purposes, it was in kind of a tech demo. It was a way to show off what Lara Croft could be for that generation and going forward, but also being able to show what you can do with Lara and what Lara can do with sort of these new sort of technologies. And they worked on top of that, and they added in a lot more puzzles, and they added in a lot more environmental things, which again I do appreciate, as well as the fact of you can see. And this kind of moves into my next part, is when I tell you about my experience of playing the game so far, which I've played. I'm still in Peru. I'm still in the beginning level, but because there's so many puzzles, it's taken me a long time to get through just the one level. So I figured it's easy just to do it now before I complete that level and move on to the next one. But I can see where they've taken the Legend engine, and they've taken all their experiences making the game there and taking all the feedback that game got and just kind of improving upon it. The game looks a lot more smoother. Now, granted, yes, I'm playing on an Xbox Series X, but it looks smoother. It feels smoother. It just looks better. So that's good. So the engine works better there. The environments look a lot better, look a lot more alive, a less sort of grey. Again, one of the issues with the 360 generation, and PlayStation 3 was the same, was everything had that same sort of, it looked like somebody put a bit of grease over like the camera, so everything just looked very sort of greasy and waxy and that sort of look. But things look a bit more alive and a little bit more awake, which again I really liked and appreciated. As for my personal experiences actually playing the game, it's a lot of fun. I am enjoying it. It is getting a bit tedious. One thing that is kind of bothering me is the fact of they want to make the levels less linear and more sort of branching paths, which is fine. Again, I've got no issue with that. I quite enjoy the linear paths, in the older Lara Croft games. It wasn't something that bothered me, but I get what they wanted with the newer technology to do sort of more linear paths. The issue with this is the fact of there is no map. You don't get given a map, so it's not like the fact of the game's telling me to go this way, but there's a path that goes this way. And what I ended up doing by accident, and luckily I saved at a point that sort of where the convergence is, where you can go left or right. I actually made a mistake, and I ended up going left, thinking, "Oh, it's all right. This can't be the main path. The main path's up the waterfall. I'm going, in the alternate direction to see if there's any like collectibles or any mysteries to solve or anything like that." And I ended up fighting the T-Rex by accident. I ended up getting to that point, and I'm like, I don't want to do this yet. Like, I was really panicky, worried, being like, I don't want to do shit, because I've again, I get really bad FOMO when it comes to games. Like, I really do fear of missing things. So I'm like, I have to scour whole levels before I can leave them. Right? It's just a personal thing, and I got so much anxiety to me. I had to like go back to an old save and then go on the alternate route, do everything I could in that alternate route. It turned out that I could only do so much in that route for now. I had to actually keep going in the story, and you loop back around and you come back to that location. But because the game doesn't tell you that, or it doesn't hint at that, it was one of those where it was like, very panicky. So that is the only thing that really bothers me, is the fact of, it's all good having branching paths. It's just make it a bit more obvious of where you had to go, and where you can go and do a little bit more exploration. But then you'd have to come back here once you have like a cog or sort of piece that you need. Just make that a bit more sort of clear. Again, this game 2007, they're going to make an update or change, but that's the only real sort of downside I have at the moment. Apart from that, it looks good, it feels good, it plays really smooth. I love there's this one feature that you have where when you shoot an animal can go into like a rage mode, and that they just charge at you. And then there's like this action button. So as they charge at you, if you press B and you flick either to the left or to the right, Lara will do this really cool sort of slow-mo sort of Matrix like spinning kick in the air with the dual pistols out. And if you wait just until the reticle turns red, you can get a one-hit kill, and it's brilliant. And it does double damage, and it works so fantastically against wolves. It works so fantastically against bears. Again, I do question. Again, this is me being me in my brain. I do question of like, how the hell, how are the bears and wolves? How are they surviving? Are they eating each other? It makes no sense. And like these T-Rexes, they're in this T-Rex and these little raptors. How are they surviving? How are they alive? I'm in a small little area. Like, what are they living off? Again, it's not the point. You're meant to be on an adventure. Don't question it. Of course, there's dinosaurs, and of course, there's bears in caves. They shouldn't be there. But it was just one of those where it's like, why are they there for? But again, don't think too hard. It's a game. Enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. It might take me a while, I'll admit, to complete this game, because again, it is so tedious with the puzzles, and because the whole idea of I don't know if I should go this way or that way. So I am hoping to hopefully get it done by the end of this month that I'm recording this, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. But I'm enjoying it, and that's the main part. I'm enjoying playing Lara Croft, and that is the big takeaway to take at the beginning. Anyway, so I'm going to go off now and try to complete this game, and then when we come back, fingers crossed, it will all be completed, and I'll be happy chappy, and I'll talk about my experiences with Tomb Raider Legend. So I will see you all in a second. And welcome back, everybody. So I don't know how to do this review, and to be honest and fair without being negative, because I have to be honest, because if I'm not, then there's no point doing the show. And if I'm not honest and I don't stick to what I preach, then I can't preach it. And what I mean by all this is the fact of I really tried to enjoy this game. And I did, because I love Lara Croft, and I have fond memories of watching my dad play the classic Lara Croft games on the PC. But the issue I had with this game was the fact of it is very tedious, and it was because of the tediousness of the game that it kind of led me to not enjoy it. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't having a lot of fun, because the monotonous of the constant, you would shimmy up a pipe and you'd go to jump on another pipe, and lava wouldn't grab onto it. She would just fall right through it and die. And because of that, and this is where the honesty comes into it, I have to admit, I didn't complete the game. And I wanted to. I managed to complete Peru, which was the first mission. And then you go to Greece. I got to Greece, and then it kind of got to a point there where I was just like, I was stuck on the puzzle. I didn't know what I was doing. And again, I get it with old sort of game design. Whereas, like nowadays, it's very signposted. You get the sort of the people make the joke about it, but you have like the yellow or orange sort of like luminous paint that tells you where to go, what to do. Some people nitpick on it. It doesn't really bother me. To be honest, I quite enjoy it, and I like the idea of, again, like I said in introduction, this idea of alternate paths and knowing where to go and where not to go. If you go this way, do you lock yourself out of being able to go somewhere else, or going back, backtracking and things like that? So sometimes it's nice to know, like, the game wants me to go that way, but there's an opening that way. So obviously I know that way I can go this way, follow the campaign, done. And that way I can do that, right? So things like that is fine. But when it gets to like the puzzles and that, some of them you can sit there and you go, oh, I can see what it's trying to do. I can work it out. Then other puzzles, you sit there and go, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you're trying different solutions, different things. And the game is to give you no hints. It's give you no sort of thing. And like, I'm sitting there thinking, did I do something wrong? Did I skip a step by accident? And, is the game built that way to be like, if you make a mistake, you have to kind of deal with it or not? I wasn't really sure. And it was that sort of thing that I didn't enjoy, sadly. Which is a shame because like the game is gorgeous. Like as you play through the game, if you find like relics and artifacts and things like that, once you complete the level, you unlock stuff in the extras like concept art and stuff like that. And one of the good things that I loved was the fact of the one bit of concept art that you unlock is showing you like a still image of what a certain part of the level looked like in the original Tomb Raider game, and then what it looks like now in the anniversary edition. You can see the differences, and I really loved and appreciated that, being able to like, because again, as I was playing this, and again, I know it sounds strange, but everybody knows hopefully what I'll mean when I say this, is the fact of when I was running through the anniversary, how this game looks is how I remember the original Lara Croft looking, in my mind anyway, because again, at the time, seeing that was the most advanced, incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. What I imagined my memories are of seeing my dad play that game is what it looks like here, playing it on the 360 version. How smooth it is, how good it looks, and how beautiful everything looks. Obviously, hindsight being what it is, I know it isn't, but that it brings back the nostalgia, it brings back the memories, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was just the fact, because of the tediousness of not knowing where to go, what to do. And I guess I would imagine if I played the original Lara Croft game myself, then I'd probably have a lot more fun because I would know where to go and what to do. But it was very much the fact of like, I just felt lost at certain points. I was going back and forth. I was doing the same things. And then sometimes like Lara would grapple onto things and sometimes she wouldn't grapple onto them. Or sometimes I'd tell her to jump and then she would grab on, but then sometimes she wouldn't. And it's a bit strange because, again, this is made on the same engine that Legend was made on. And I had no issues with that. Apart from her humping things, and it looked a bit odd as she was shimmering along up rope or up poles. It looked a bit dodgy. Again, in all fairness, it still does. But I never had an issue with jumping and grabbing a ledge or grabbing a pole or whatever, and Lara not grabbing it, no matter what the height was. If it was in her range, even if she was off just a little bit to the right or to the left, she would always automatically grab onto it and latch. But that never seemed to happen here. And it always felt like, because the game, and I had this one when I was in Peru, and there was this one puzzle where you go up a ramp, and as you go up a ramp, a boulder comes down towards you. So you run back from the boulder. The boulder then takes out the floor that's behind you. Underneath the floor are these like little pillars that you can use to get to certain areas. You can't go back up the ramp because as the ball came down, loads of sort of metal bars came down. So you've got to open up these bars. So there's two areas you can go, on the right or the left. It doesn't matter which side you pick. You go to one area, you do a little jump puzzle, and you pull down the switch, and then one door opens, and then you go off to the other side to the right, and then you do another different puzzle. With this other separate puzzle, you go into the room, You get straight to the switch. As you go to press the switch, the floor falls out below you. You get attacked by walls, and then you've got to work your way back up. And I did. I did that a couple of times, but each time it was like I've got two poles next to each other. So I figured, oh, hold on a second. There's two poles, and then there's some some ledges on the side of the wall. I'm going to have to jump from one pole to the next because it's not that far. Of course, I'm going to be able to make it. I've made that jump before in the game already, and I made it in Legend, so I didn't think, it was not something that would be possible. So I was going to jump on these poles, and then I was going to jump on the wall, shimmy down, and then I'm going to get on one of the poles that's hanging out the wall, jump onto that, and then do my cool little somersault around, jump off that, jump onto the latch, and use my whole Lara's body weight, pull the switch down. This was the logic that I had in my head, and again, I could do that in Legend, and I've done it in other Lara games because it makes sense to her character and to what she can do. And again, it all made sense. I did it multiple times, and she wasn't jumping, like, even though she was right next to it, she wasn't jumping onto it. She would just fall right through it to her death and die. And how many times I'd have to keep doing that in the end? And I felt stupid for it because it makes sense, but it's not signposted. So unless you don't think logically in what Lara would think or what you could do with Lara. If you don't think of it like that, you think of, what's the most straightforward route? And the straightforward route was once you climb up, you shimmy up the first wooden beam. You could then just jump onto a ledge that's the top of the switch, and then drop down from that ledge onto the switch and pull it down. And I felt stupid for it because, again, I didn't think to do that, because why would I? Because that seemed a bit too obvious. And in these games, the obvious answer is not always the right answer. Sometimes it's you got to climb here, get this switch, pull that lever, blah blah blah. Solve the puzzle. So it wasn't easily signposted at certain points. And again, I don't know if it's this game or it's the fact of that's just how, because it's like a sort of anniversary remake of the original Lara, and that's just how those games were back then. I am not sure. More than likely, there's a potentiality that is the case, or it's it's the team who made the anniversary game. Again, I don't know because again I haven't played the anniversary game. But even so, it was one of those where I'm sitting there thinking, I just wish it was better signposted, or it made a little bit more sense. And I think that's what kind of ruined the enjoyment for me, is the fact of I wanted to keep playing, I wanted to keep going, but it just got really tedious. And again, the checkpoints as well. Every time you go to a new area, it says you got a checkpoint, which worked, but the problem is, like, you think, oh, there's a checkpoint. I'm about to do a really risky jump, so I'm going to manually save, thinking, oh, if I manually save, it's going to plonk me where I was. So you do a risky jump, and again, you don't make it, as I did most of the time. And it wouldn't take me back to my save. It would take me back ages to my checkpoint. So I'd end up having to do certain sections all over again. I think, hold on a second, this is not where I saved. I saved up there. You've put me back down here. This is not fair. And that's kind of the running sort of theme with it as well. And in the end, and again, I didn't want to rage quit because I really wanted to push through. And I felt like, oh God, if I admit on the podcast that I didn't complete it, people are going to think of me as such an idiot. But it was just one of those where I sat with it and like, I tried multiple times. I turned the game off. I'd play something else. I'd come back to it and I'd get a little bit further each time. But the fun was no longer there, because as soon as I got to Greece and I realized it was just a longer form of loads of different puzzles and more jumping, and again, not knowing where I've got to go, not knowing what I've got to do, it wasn't always obvious. And again, I know it could come back down to the fact of that's just how the original sort of games were. But I don't know. I feel like I've been spoilt with modern gaming, with the whole idea of kind of giving a lot, being told where to go and what to do, not having to sit there and go and use your brain. Possibly. I just think, with modern amenities, especially even like in the 7th generation with the 360 and the PlayStation, you would think that if they remade the game for current gen for the time, that they would have put a lot of these amenities in, these sort of things, these what's it called now, ease of life sort of things, things that make things easier, or sort of like, in the older games, you didn't know what to do. You had to read like guidebooks and things like that and strategy guides. Now we don't need to do that. We can just say, even if it's the fact of, you try a puzzle and you die a few times or you don't quite get it, even a hint would be nice, being like, oh, I can see you're struggling, see you've died. Why don't you try doing this? Why don't you try doing that? And even like movie tie-in games, for like, I don't know, I'm thinking top of my head, the Charlie Chocolate Factory game, for example, or Wall-E or whatever. Like even these childish games would give you hints, on the PlayStation 2 and on the 360 and things like that. So I just don't know why they couldn't have added that in, being like, oh, you've died a few times, don't worry. Here's a hint. Try this. Or maybe if you thought about doing that, even if it don't make it obvious, just have you ever thought about doing this? Actually, I didn't think about doing that. I'm going to give that. Oh, there it is. And where I left the game off, I left it off basically where you're in this room and you climb up this. You're in this like there's water below you, and there's these platforms. You climb on the platform, and there's this like lever that you can't reach yet because you can't jump high enough to reach it. So you climb up this little spire, and then you get to the top, and then there's this fish, and then there's a block in front of it, and you move the block, and the fish starts to spurt water. That raises the water level, which in my mind was like, oh, brilliant! I can now go get that switch. So I jump in the water, I swim down, I pull the switch. The switch then opens up a grate that was in the ground, and puts up a what's I call it, like a what's the word I'm looking for now? Like a raft. Only downside is the raft then gets stuck. I think it's intentionally, but it gets stuck on on one of the arches, on one of the walkways. And I'm thinking, oh well, that should be easy. It being a physics engine and that, I'm just going to swim down and I'm going to push it. No, you can't push it. I even tried to lower myself on it. I tried to push it. Problem is, Lara can't hold her breath for that long, so I couldn't. There was many different things I couldn't try. And I thought, well, maybe if I can go down, I can use my grapple, and I can hook my grapple onto it, and then swim a bit, and then let go, and then pull it free. You can't do that. And part of me thought, well, maybe I should go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and figure out how to do it. But again, it came back to the fact that I got to that point, and it was like, I really can't be bothered, because I know after this I'm going to solve this puzzle, and there's going to be more rooms of puzzles like this. There's going to be more moments like this, and I don't know. I just felt like I'm just not going to enjoy it, which is a shame. It really is, and because of that, I don't want to comment on if the game's good or bad. I don't want to comment on the fact of, the story, because again, I didn't really experience it at all, to be honest. So I'll mostly just comment on the gameplay. Is the fact of, for me, again, it could be down to the fact of being spoiled by modern gaming, possibly, but I just didn't enjoy it for the monotonous, tiresome, like clever. Don't get me wrong, clever, but really not very well signposted puzzles where you didn't know what you were doing at times, and when you finally did figure it out, there's a lot of backtracking and stuff like that. And again, like I said, there's no map. It would be nice for a map, or even just like for Lara Croft to pull up a journal and just be like, I've been here. Like Nathan Drake style, or Indiana Jones, where you pulls up a journal, hand draw, and be like, oh, I've been here. I've done that. Okay, that's been done. All right, I've got to go to the left now because I haven't been to that area. Little sort of ease of life sort of things, would have been really, really useful. What I ended up doing though, and where I found the most enjoyment, was in Croft Manor. So this game, because again, it runs on the same engine, has a Croft Manor, like in Legend. And as I explained in my Legend review, you could go with Croft Manor, and there were puzzles and there were little things to explore, and you could go around Croft Manor and you could do the little puzzles, and you can solve little things and find collectibles and stuff like that. It was really, really fun and enjoyable. Same situation here. Because I got so annoyed with the campaign, I went off the campaign, went to Croft Manor, and actually had a good 2-3 hours worth of fun just running around Croft Manor, solving the puzzles, going to the library, pushing a book in the library, doors come open, I found my twin guns, and then I found what was it now? I found a spear in one of the rooms because I managed to find a switch that I can shoot with a gun. That took me down a route, and then I found myself into another room, and then I found a spear which I can go down into the garden and open up the maze. But because I didn't know my way around the maze, I went back, searched around the house, made my way to Lara's bedroom, managed to find 2 switches that I can pull. Doors open, I get Lara's journal, and then Lara's journey gives me hints about what I need in certain areas. It told me that I need a map, so I went back to the library. I found another switch that was hidden in bookshelves. They opened up. I found the map for the maze, and then with that map, I could work my way around the maze, so I didn't get lost, so I knew where I was going. And it's things like this is the fact of this is what I wanted from the campaign, was be moments like this where I find something and he goes, here's a clue, blah blah blah. Okay, I know what to do with this. I'm going to go over here, and maybe you do as you go through the campaign, but like that sense of exploration, that sense of fun, the interest in the backtracking. I didn't mind going the backtracking because I knew that once I went back and I found an item, I could then go further, and then I wouldn't have to go back again for a little while because I'd be having fun in a new area. And again, you get to go in the gardens in this version. You get to go in the gardens, as far as I found anyway, when I was going through Legend, going through Croft Manor. So there was a new area to explore and there was new things to do and stuff like that. And like I got majority of my enjoyment out of doing Croft Manor. So I'm glad it was there, because I feel like this for me probably would have been a bit of a bummer, to be honest. It would have been a real letdown, which is a shame, because this, out of the three of the games, this is the one I was most looking forward to, because it went back to the original Lara Croft games. It has got me a little worried, I won't lie, because I do want to play the Lara Croft 1, 2, and 3 remasters, as well as the 3, 4, 5 ones that came out recently. So I do want to play them, but I've got my fingers crossed that they have a lot of ease of life sort of things and stuff like that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see. But again, I have my fingers crossed for that. It has put me a little bit worried about those ones, going back to them, because again, I'm not really sure if it's an old game problem or it's a remake problem in terms of this game. I don't know, or if it was a design choice. Again, I'm not sure. So it's got me a little bit worried, but I have my fingers crossed that hopefully those games are their own sort of thing, and then you've got this game which is its thing. That's my hope anyway. Again, art style, beautiful. This game is gorgeous. Like I said, it runs smooth, it runs like butter, to be honest. And there are many moments where you would be fooled into believing that it was a modern game. It does. It looks how, again, I know I'm playing it on Series X, but it's smooth. It runs really well. It looks fantastic. The visuals are great. Like I said, the nostalgia side of it actually looks and feels how I remember Lara Croft looking and feeling when I used to watch my dad play it on the PC. And being like a toddler and not having any idea what I'm doing, or what's going on around me, but just being enthralled about what was happening on screen. Like it was a wonderful moment. And for that, like looking around and playing the game, this is what drew me in the most, was the fact that this is what I remember it looking like. I remember this area. I remember this village. I remember what these levels used to look like when. This is what the T-Rex used to look like. You know what I mean? Like things like that. And fighting the T-Rex was awesome. Fighting the raptors was awesome. Fighting the wolves was awesome. Even if they are a bit of a bullet sponge, it's still pretty cool. And again, it's things like that would make me wish I carried on playing, because again, I want to see more bosses and things. But it was just the fact of I just knew the puzzles. There's going to be more puzzles, and I just wasn't looking forward to it. And the thing is, I always say this, and I've said this to loads of people, is the fact if life is too short, if you're not enjoying something, don't push yourself through it. I did it with Avatar, The Frontiers of Pandora, and that really numbed me. That got me to the point where I was like, I'm just not. It was. I played it all for March, the whole game for the whole of March, and it was just by the end of it, I really regretted it. And it's one of those where I just thought myself made of like, if you're not enjoying something, just don't lie. Just be honest with yourself. Just be like, look, you're not enjoying it. You're trying to find gold where you there is, but you can't find it because you've got to dig too deep. And it's just you've got to get through a lot of crap before you get there, and that's one of the downsides. But yeah, it's a shame. And like I said, I'm not going to comment on the story or anything like that. But the visuals are wonderful. The gameplay, the traversals, things like that, is pretty good when it works. And it is quite funny to see Lara air hump things as she's like crawling up pools and rope. It is hilarious because like it's just funny. It really is. It just makes me giggle. I'm a big child that way. like, yeah, but when it works, fine. But yeah, the puzzles are very tedious. And again, and I would say that if you played the original games and you're used to that and you know your way around, I don't think you'd have any issue potentially. But for me, it was just like, nah, just wasn't for me, sadly. But I hate being negative. I just really hate being like this. This is not me. So I really, yeah, I hate it. I really do. I hate myself. But I've got to be honest, I do. The collectibles are fun as well. You can find artifacts and relics. Artifacts, I think, I'm not sure if it's the artifacts or the relics or both that get you like the alternate costumes. And I did. I unlocked two alternate costumes. I unlocked the legend skin, which is the skin that is the character skin, the character model, shall we say, that is in Tomb Raider Legend. And they also unlocked the original Lara skin with like the rectangle boobies and everything, which I did run around and playing as that just around the Croft Manor as for fun, really. Again, just to take me back. And again, that was a lot of fun as well. That actually added an extra hour or two of wanting to keep playing because I was like, oh, look, this is like classic Lara. I love it. And it's little things like that. Just little things that I look back and I'm like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that. But yeah, my overall sort of thoughts is the fact of I enjoyed it for what it was, for what it was trying to do in terms of visuals and trying to bring back a classic, the classic Lara, the first ever Tomb Raider, bring it to a modern audience, revamp it for a newer console. So the visuals and the animations and the models and everything was just runs a lot smooth like butter. And again, the story itself seemed interesting. It was just the monotonous puzzles, the puzzles and the not very well signposted and not knowing where to go and what to do. That was the only thing for me personally that lets it down. But again, I digress. If you played the original game and you know your way around, and if things like not very easily signposts or puzzles and things like that is your cup of tea, then by all means, I would recommend it. Which is a shame. Not for that, just the fact of it's just a shame that I couldn't gel with it. And I am kind of disappointed with myself, but I am proud that I was honest and admitted that, look, I tried and it wasn't for me. But there are upsides. And one upside is that Tomb Raider Underworld is next. And I do really, really enjoy that game. I never completed it. I only got as far as the giant octopus, and I never got any further than that because the octopus kept beating my ass and I never got any further. But, seasoned gamer here, even though I get annoyed by non-signpost puzzles. Seasoned gamer here. So I'm hoping that I do a little bit better. But, like I said, there's a silver lining. I've got Underworld to look forward to, so it's not all bad. And Legend was pretty good as well. And again, this game, in the continuity of this series, is set before Legend. And then the sequel to Legend is officially, in terms of the timeline and the story, Underworld. So hopefully when I'm playing Underworld, I get what I'm looking for and I get more of that, the carry on with that story and vice versa and like that. So there are things to look forward to. It's just a shame that I couldn't find what I was looking for here. But there's more Lara Croft games. There's more games to play. There's more movies and things like that to look into. So it isn't the end of the world. One game that doesn't work with me doesn't matter. There are 20 billion different games out there. You know what I mean? Like, I'll find something that I enjoy. It's just a shame it has to be a Lara Croft game. But yeah, either way, maybe one day I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it in maybe a year or two, give it a go again and finally complete it. We'll see. I always think about coming back to all games. So it's never the end. It's never over. Anyway, what is over is this review. I do apologize for being negative, negative Nancy, but I had to be honest. So despite that, I hope you find some enjoyment out of this and that you want to come back and listen to more reviews that I do. If you haven't listened to my review of Tomb Raider Legend, then please do check that out. That one is a lot more positive review than this one. As well as, again, all my reviews of all the other Lara Croft movies, again, and the Netflix TV show as well. That was pretty awesome. That I don't think many people actually watch, sadly. So again, listen to that and watch it on Netflix if you have it, because it's pretty brilliant. But yeah, so I have been your host, Luke the Human. I hope you've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye. Bye.